Hello Internet, welcome to the Star Wars FMG podcast special. It's been some time now since we've had a podcast, but I've got everyone here, and Adam from Italy is joining us. We've got Troy as well, Andy, and obviously your host Carl, and we're going to talk about the new Star Wars film and all about Star Wars as a whole. You might hear a cat in the background as well.
Millie's here too.
There's a guest starring Millie.
It's the final Star Wars film in the Skywalker saga, so probably going to be the last time we have a real big Star Wars discussion, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Last time I watched Star
No,
Wars.
I'm pretty sure for set.
Got one quick huge announcement to make though. It's a really, really exciting time because we are now the only FMG podcast on YouTube.
Oh,
we won the FMG podcast war against the other FMG podcasts. They gave up before the fight started, and they've taken down all their videos.
wow. But they only got one video out, didn't they?
No, they had about 3.
Oh, wow. So it was a good effort.
Yeah.
Damn.
And they took it all down. And I think we will start. Popular demand is to put this on SoundCloud as well. So I'm going to be doing that because people want to listen without watching the YouTube video, obviously.
Which is a good idea.
Yeah.
Because you can't really listen to YouTube on your phone and have it in your pocket because of the way that phones work.
Unless you have American YouTube. I've got a VPN. It actually allows you to play. I found that out by
Sons of
accident.
a bitch.
I know. You have to pay for that in Australia.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
But it's just good to know that if you tell someone FMG podcast and it'll come right up, it's only us.
It's a really good step in the right direction.
Yeah.
For a podcast which publishes an episode once every 10 years.
And it's listened to by about as many people.
But who knows, we may have this war again if someone else tries to jump back on.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would be so bold.
They saw what happened to the other one. They know. They know we've been business.
But
It feels like we've been stalling long.
how are we going to do this? Like, do you want to go around, give your initial thoughts, and then we'll take it from there?
Yeah, we'll just do initial, like your one paragraph, first impressions, and then we'll delve in.
And give it a score out of 10 as well.
Alright.
An arbitrary number.
And this is based on like Empire Strikes Back is like a 10.
Yeah, okay.
And like that's the standard. We're not talking like
I don't understand this scale already. You've confused me.
Okay, so if Empire Strikes Back is the perfect 10, and it's still 0 to 10.
I'm not saying 10 in the scale of movies in general. I'm saying 10
In the Star Wars universe.
Wars, thank you.
Oh yeah, we should probably say, fuck it, we're just doing spoilers.
Yeah, if you want to listen to this, you've either seen it or you don't care. So spoilers ahead.
Massive spoilers. Adam, oh no, you better not start us off because you don't understand the scaling. Troy, start us off.
Yeah, Troy understands the scaling. He'll be fine.
I can grasp the concept. I'll go with let's say 6.5/7. I think around that kind of mark, maybe 6.5. We'll go with the first score.
Initial thoughts.
Initial thoughts. Basically, it was entertaining enough. Seemed to do the job that it was kind of designed for the last couple of films and tie things up. But a lot of things just didn't make sense, and that was a big part of the film which kind of failed for me, where just things happen because, and there's a lot of things that kind of get introduced throughout the film, and then they get wrapped up, and I don't think I really cared about a lot of the things that were going on. But it was entertaining enough, and that's my kind of takeaway from it.
Yeah, the emotional music tried to make you care.
It tried.
Oh man, they kept bringing in that old Star Wars theme
Yeah.
again and again. Just be like, you remember Star Wars? Do you remember caring?
I feel something, but it's not. I would say for me 5 out of 10. I'm not angry at it. Like when I came out of Last Jedi, I was just angry, but I'm definitely disappointed. Similar reasons to Troy, but more so just the whole filmmaking craft and everything they put together in terms of a narrative perspective, character perspective, even technical perspective I was telling you about when we finished up watching the movie. Overall, I think it was a very sloppy, put together movie, and that's my sloppy. That's the word that comes to mind.
Yeah, I feel like the sloppiness. Like what really got me was right at the start with the title crawl and like the the sequence of the Millennium Falcon is just pulling shit out of a hat just to be like, this is how we're going to try and save this trilogy. Because by a film by itself, it's okay. I think it's probably about a 5 or 6. You know, it's competently done with the action scenes. I actually cared. I actually cared about some of the bits, which I was kind of surprised by. I went, oh, they've actually kind of recovering this. But as if you put in the time for the last 2 films, like, oh, it didn't feel like a proper end. It just felt like it went, you don't worry about the last film. We're just going off this one, and it was a dog's breakfast of a film, and I just found it very disappointing in a lot of ways. And that's what, I mean, you guys saw my reaction after the film.
You were really down.
I still feel down. Like, I had hopes, and I won't get into that bit. Yeah, we'll hear from Adam. But
well, what's your numerical rating?
You said 5 to 6.
5 to 6. 5 to 6. Yeah.
You called that 5 to 6.
Yeah.
You came out of that movie like you wanted to put a gun to your head, and you tell me it's a 5 out of 10.
Yeah,
I
but
don't understand the scale.
All right. Let me give some
Scale
reference
with it.
here, because it's a 5 to 10 movie, right? But it's a Star Wars film, and
Not
it's made by
really.
Disney. I have very high standards. They've got a ton of money in this. They've got a ton of talent, and they could only bring out a 5 out of 10. That's why I'm so depressed about it. It's like a film is average or too bad, but it's still like you've got all these people there that are putting all this time and effort, and that's the best they could come up with. Yeah, that's the best they got.
See how you go, Adam.
Look, I honestly do not understand this scale. Just
He didn't get it either. So
judging by your answers.
Get it.
It's Star Wars, based just on Star Wars, not as a
Oh,
film.
just on Star Wars. All right, I'll give it a 3.
3, thank you. Okay.
I would probably say, for me, somewhere between 4 and 6. It varies depending on if I think about it from this angle or that angle, but 4 to 6 fairly solidly. I mean, sort of similar to Troy, I thought, like, I went in with probably the clearest mind possible. I had no expectations. I just wanted to enjoy a movie. I thought, I'm paying money to see this. I want to at least have a decent time. If it was prequel bad, I would find a way to enjoy it for how terrible it was. And if it was a good movie, I wasn't going to hate it just because it was a new movie or whatever. I wanted to be entertained. And I went in and I felt nothing, basically. It was an experience of nothingness. Basically, it was fine as a movie. It was fine. It was not. Was it good? No. Did I like it? No. Did I hate it? Also no. Was it terrible? Not really. It was just a sequence of events that sometimes looked good, sometimes looked not so good.
What are some good things? What are some good things, everyone?
All right, well, now we have to get into a bit more detail. So I thought
Positives.
that, for me, the thing, for me, what I wanted to like about this movie is that I think it has a workable core, which is the sort of the character drama between Kylo Ren and Rey is it's compelling enough to drive most of the movie. Maybe not this movie. The way that it was executed was kind of tedious and repetitive. Join me, but I felt that the actors put in really strong performances, and if they had, well, I'll put it to you like this: the biggest issue with this movie was the movies that came before it. Which is something that I'm probably going to come back to again and again. But I felt that the strongest point to the film was the interaction between those two particular characters.
But they had 3 movies to establish that connection. I was like, when did that happen? Because they had nothing. Like, I think there was more established connection in like the first 10 minutes of Empire Strikes Back between Leia and Han than there was in 3 movies worth of Rey and Kylo Ren or Ben. I don't get why they were meant to like love each other in some small way. They never had some fun times together. They never. It was just him tormenting her, and suddenly that got her rocks off.
I never disagree. I mean, I think actually it was the one thing that they kept from The Last Jedi, which was this kind of forced connection and the fact that they were kind of inside each other's heads and sort of exploring each other's psyches in some way. I feel like that was at least a basis enough in theory to establish some kind of connection. I mean, did it work? Iffy. Did it work completely? Definitely not. But I was willing to go along with it. For the sake of my own enjoyment, I was willing to give the movie a pass on that point.
They didn't even have a heartwarming moment, even for a split second together, until that very end. But like all leading up to that, like last movie, you think they could have had like. You think about how many films where the villain and the hero, they sometimes have a moment.
But there was like the culmination of The Last Jedi with the fight when they killed Snoke, and
it was a rivalry. It was a relationship built off their rivalry and through their kind of mutual situation of being Force users, having a lot of responsibility put on them, and then, you know, having various forces playing out, being like, I want you to join us with Snoke and all that. That was
and
probably
also both being like having a lot of internal conflict. I felt there was a bond of empathy.
yeah,
Okay,
like
mutual understanding of what.
yeah, they were both in the shits though. Could kind of take some comfort out. Like that was the only thing I thought was half decent about the previous film, Last Jedi. Yeah, it was the only thing I thought that really came out as something that was kind of done well enough was Kylo and Ren or Rey kind of coming together as all right, they've actually got a relationship, a bond or something. Everybody else, all the other supporting cast had nothing for that film. I feel like that's what made it such a waste of time. I only watched it 3 weeks ago, so it's still fresh in my mind.
The other thing I liked about this movie is I thought there were some really good visuals. I enjoyed the themes of the Resistance trying to like the idea that there are supporters out there, but they're all sort of looking at it from an individualistic perspective. But I mean, did it really work out? It was messy and muddled. A lot of this movie was like that because I mean, part of this, the way that the movie was executed was just, there's so much happening. It's just one thing after another, and it's really hard to solidify those core themes and core ideals in a coherent way. So, I mean, I thought, again, there's a movie in here which is a good movie, but it's buried under the fact that it's trying to be 2.5 movies in 2.5 hours.
The best thing for me was the Carrie Fisher scenes. Apparently they deleted footage that they weren't able to use from The Force Awakens, and they were able to use that, and they molded Rey's scenes around that and the story around what they had and the dialogue they had of her. I thought that was the best part of the movie. That was a real feat of engineering, I think, getting her, a dead actress, and just working in those scenes.
I disagree.
Well,
you think it wasn't seamless?
No, I thought it was extremely janky.
Really?
I really
what scenes were there? I didn't notice the scenes. Which
The
scenes
scenes
were there?
with
at the
her and
start
Rey
with the
talking.
training,
At the training, where she was handing you the lightsaber and all that.
and then there was a couple of scenes of, but like when she died,
That
she's
was
like
ridiculous.
Oh yeah, but
just hangs up the headset, wanders off,
Yeah.
and then Maz kind of, she knows what she has to do,
And
and
then
then
she-
she lies down.
as a long
and
distance
dies.
stuff.
That was bad, but I'm talking about the scenes of just her and Rey. They were able to do a good job.
I feel like that was a better way of doing it than doing a CGI version of her, like they did with
yeah.
Rogue One. I think that's, if you're gonna...
Speaking of, there was that one
Yeah,
flashback. With,
I was like, okay, that's one flashback. That's a
Luke
young one.
looked okay
It's
there.
fine. It's a young one. It's fine. It's just, if they'd done it where it's just like, oh, we lost Carrie Fisher, don't worry, we've got enough dialogue from other scenes and we'll just CGI her in there, like they did with... They did it in Gladiator, didn't they? One of the actors died in Gladiator and they CGI'd him back in. It's like, I don't know how I feel about that, like bringing back an old actor just to finish it off. I don't know.
No,
That's
but, I
a
mean, it's
low-
not the same what they did in this movie. Where
Yeah,
they
definitely not. But
cut deleted scenes from
And-
before, but
But Luke did, I think in that dark scene, Luke looked alright, and then it cut to young Leia, and it was really jarring.
Yeah.
I thought both of them were a bit.
Okay.
Luke didn't move as much as Leia, so it wasn't as bad. But it's like,
Yeah, I felt.
Why do they keep trying to do
I
this?
felt the inclusion of Leia was. I mean, they did the best with what they could, and it was okay, but it was, for me, not at all seamless. I felt like it really felt awkwardly inserted, and it's like, well, what can you do? There's not a great solution there, but like.
What did you like about it, Troy?
I think all the kind of points are being made, especially with the flashback. It was particularly noticeable. But I guess I could put it to you: was there too much nostalgia in this film? I don't think it's jumping to that.
Like the fan service.
The fan service, big time.
You could hear Mace Windu at a couple of...
Yeah. When they were saying, when they had all the Jedi coming
Yeah.
back to talk to Rey, it was just like you could. I was trying to pick out all the different ones. I was trying to get Qui-Gon Jinn and all that.
And Vader's voice was in for a moment. We had
Obi-Wan.
Palpatine said, "Do it" at
Do
one
it.
point.
I know. Like we're sticking to things we enjoyed.
What
So-
do you think?
Well,
Okay, let's.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on from like Adam's thing of, it was being a little awkward. One thing I thought was less awkward this film was the actual characters. I actually felt like they fleshed out the gang a lot better, mainly because they also...
we're still talking about fan service. One topic at a time.
No,
Ed.
no. We're going on to
No, let's
good
go on something
things.
else. Stuff we enjoy, because I don't think... Did any of us enjoy the fan service?
I mean, some of it I thought was okay.
Yeah,
Did
I
you?
kind of didn't mind the nostalgia trips.
Had-
Some of it was
All right.
bad. The
Yeah.
medal was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah, Chewie finally got his medal.
But it's like she wanted you to have this. She's in any time in the past 40 years.
Yeah, she could have given Chewie the medal. And for context, this is from A New Hope, and the final throne room scene after they destroyed the Death Star. Han and Luke are given medals to congratulate them on, saving the princess and destroying the Death Star. When Chewie was also there the whole time, it's been a long-standing joke that Chewie should have got his medal.
But the thing is, I'm pretty sure in like the special editions, which is the current canon, they CGI'd a medal in for him anyway, didn't they?
No.
If anyway, the joke's gone long enough that it's just going to be that way, regardless of what they do. Yeah. But fans of
It didn't make any sense. It was just a stupid in joke. That's like, why include those 5 seconds anyway?
Yeah, that's true. But
You liked the
but like
characters
the-
getting fleshed out, but this is the first movie where I really said, I hate this Poe guy. Like,
Oh, I love Poe. I thought Poe was the best one because he's a reckless idiot who gets his comeuppance every now and then. I actually thought he's more dramatic. In the Last Jedi, he certainly got pulled around a lot, but in this one, it's like he kind of got pulled up by some of the other characters being like, look, just calm down, just slow it down. He meant like that old fling, and I was kind of like, hey, it's kind of nice seeing some like back and forth between some characters, some chemistry going on screen. It was nice.
I mean,
And then the child soldiers for Poe. I actually felt near the end they were trying to like just partner everybody up with like a chick. Like Poe and Finn both got paired up with like a female equivalent for a bit, and then Rey got banned in the
But
end.
what happened to all that build up with Finn and Rose kissed at the end of Last Jedi? And they
Yeah,
just
no,
got
see
rid of
that got.
Yeah.
Did you see that get retconned so hard? Or just like right at the start, it was like, "Hey, Rose, you gotta come with us." Oh no, I gotta look after the engines. It's really important.
they really did Rose dirty in this.
Yeah, they really.
I
Just
didn't
went for-
like her as a character, but fuck,
Well, see,
deserved better than. I need to stay off screen for this movie because of reasons.
I'm getting
I'll
close.
see you at the end.
I need to go home to my
Pat
home.
on the back. Bye.
That was more like I need to go back to my home planet.
And what
Goodbye.
about Finn and Rey? How like Finn brought up, he's like, I need to tell you something.
That
I
was-
thinking.
that was
just never
so-
said it.
I know.
That was, for
never
me,
said
that
it.
was really weird.
In all
I don't know what they
those
were doing with
times.
that.
I mean, I think they were just baiting something. But look, I'll take that. I'll take it as the malformed monster it is. Like it
They
actually
could've-
had something. It actually had something in this movie, and I enjoyed the character. I thought
They
thought they did the
could've
characters better.
reversed that one by saying like they could have just joked at the end and said, I just wanted to tell you that you're a good friend. They could have
Or
somehow
you're my
closed
family,
it.
or you're my
Yeah,
family.
anything,
But they
anything.
kept bringing up, oh,
Yeah.
Finn's is connected to Ray in some way, and it's like, I never really cared too much for Finn. I actually enjoyed some of the characters. That's something I thought they did well. Especially Ben, I thought they actually did. They did a bit with Kylo, Ben, whatever. I thought that was actually kind of okay. Like it felt more of a character drama than shit's happening. We've got to constantly deal with it. It's like there's actual conflicts within the group. There's conflicts within characters. People being drawn this way and that. It was like it was good. I thought that was good.
So, one thing that became really apparent to me during this movie was that apart from Kylo Ren and Rey, who again I thought were the strongest characters, probably just by virtue of the fact that they had screen time.
I'd agree, yeah.
And dialogue and
actual agency in the story. Like they're actually able to do different things rather than just
all the other characters I had no emotional connection to whatsoever. And in fact, this movie I really hated Finn because it felt like last movie there was the stuff with Rose which just got dropped and never resolved. And then they bring up the subplot with the other child soldiers, and it's like, oh, this is an interesting direction to go. And then nothing really happens with it. Like, nothing gets really built up. Finn could have had a whole other subplot about, like, trying to convince other stormtroopers to join the resistance or whatever. Nah, he's just met someone who's like him, and they become friends and go into a battle together. That's not interesting. There's this... whatever it was with Rey, I have no idea if it was an aborted romantic subplot or what.
I bet you it would be, yeah.
And there was also the stuff with Poe, which apparently Oscar Isaac was trying to push, but Disney wouldn't let it go ahead, trying to have like a gay or bisexual kind of romance between them, which I thought would have been between Finn and Poe.
That would have been out of nowhere because Finn.
No way, man! That would have been the strongest one out of all of them.
They've been hinting that for a while.
Far.
Yeah.
What, Poe and Finn look
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
I
the
didn't
way
Probably
think
make
about
more
that.
sense than
The
any
way
of the other
if you watch the
relationships.
movie, I think knowing that in advance, and you at least watch Poe's some of his lines and stuff. Like, remember when they were getting when they were captured, and Poe wanted to know what Finn was going to say to Rey, and he was like, "I don't want to talk about it." And he's like, "Well, I want to know." Like that struck me as like,
or the bit where it's like, oh, we've got secrets. It's like, oh, you don't want to tell secrets because Poe's here, huh? All right, it's playing that off.
Okay, I can understand.
See,
that.
I would have thought that was at least a natural, interesting way to go, at least as far as relationships, but nothing came of that. And then there was the stuff with like Poe's backstory, the one like old flame, which was there in one scene.
The Spice Runner thing.
The Spice Runner thing. And it's like, yeah, it was fine. There was some chemistry, but...
Can I talk about that for 1 sec?
Oh, let me say one thing,
Okay.
which was, why the fuck was it in the movie?
Yeah.
Like, this is, again, one of these things of, this is one movie trying to be 2.5 movies. This is the sort of thing to bring up 2 movies ago.
If
or
you
a movie
notice,
ago.
I already
If anything,
called you.
hang on.
Okay.
If anything,
It's Carl's turn.
No,
sorry.
Anyway, just one more. I reckon they brought in the old flame just to kind of quieten down anyone thinking, oh, it's going to be Poe and Finn together. It's
No,
just
it was
like,
definitely a case of Poe's got the not gays.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
Okay,
definitely, yeah.
So, with that scene, you got the old Spice Runner person that knew Poe from... What was that character's name?
I don't know, it's Chick.
Okay,
Spice
anyway,
Runner Chick.
helmeted
Yeah.
person. She runs into Poe, points a gun at him and says, "You think you finally come back, all this kind of stuff, and I'm gonna kill you and take Rey up for bounty with the rebels." Rey pulls a lightsaber on her, and then she suddenly goes, "I like you," and then the next scene she's going, "How about you come away with me for the rest of our lives?" I was like, whoa. Well, what happened to you hating this person? You suddenly switch to helping, and then she's giving Poe the most like special thing. She has that special token. I'm like, I swear you hated him like 2 seconds ago and we're gonna kill him.
Carl, it's called love.
That would make sense if there was a bit of a romantic...
I feel like
There was
you're
a
supposed to
scene
read
But
cut.
then
it.
at the end...
I think you're supposed to
when
read
they-
it as like a love-hate thing. Like,
Yeah.
she probably like still has feelings for him, but like they have a lot of history, obviously, and is probably complicated.
There should have been a scene though, at least them maybe for 30 seconds saying
Yeah,
like,
again, this is what I said before, where it's just so much happening. They just needed to slow down and be like,
But they couldn't.
take their time.
They
No,
couldn't
couldn't.
slow down. They
Another
couldn't
scene.
slow down. Otherwise, it would have been a 4-hour film. They would have been like...
No, it would have been 3 films ahead.
I think there was another scene towards the end when they came across each other when everyone's celebrating.
Yeah.
the,
And
like,
he
the
was
raised
like,
eyebrows.
Hey, could we? And she's like, no. So
Yeah.
I get the back and forth, but to a degree, it just didn't make sense. Like much
No,
of
I
the
mean,
film.
it's not that it made sense. It's just that it was rushed, right? That whole scene, the whole scene on that planet, I thought was pretty good, but you know, it's blink and you'll miss it. 5 minutes, they just crammed as much shit in, like with Babu Frick, who was a real scene stealer.
Yeah.
I thought, like, great character to like introduce.
You
And
talking
then
about
just-
the little guy?
Yeah, the
Yeah,
little
the
guy.
guy, yeah.
Yeah, I liked him.
Just
Yeah, he was alright. He was alright.
yeah, but then like he's there and then he's just gone. And it's
At
like,
the end, he pops up.
in the
Happens.
ship.
yeah, but it's not. It's unsatisfying.
It did. That planet ticked off a lot of boxes. Like, you know, we got to have the canteen scene.
Yeah, for me, it felt like a lot of this movie was literally like, okay, the studio execs want 10 different locations. All right, so they got to go here. They'll go to the planet with like this big festival. They'll go to this planet that's like the World War II knocking on doors looking for
Yeah.
people. We'll go to the Exegol, which is the worst named planet they could have come up with.
You know why, Adam? Because each one of those planets, we got to sell them as map packs.
Battlefront's the latest Battlefront. Yeah, I feel like we went to the most amount of planets this film. Like, of all the
Rogue
films.
One had a lot.
Yeah, no, but this one, okay, so we went to the Sith planet, Endor, we went back to Tatooine,
There
then you
were-
had the
what
jungle
was-
planet that we were on, the sand planet they were on.
Tatooine at the end.
Yeah, Tatooine at the end. It's like,
There were a lot of locations.
6, 7, 8, you know, we're getting there.
To start off with the dancing planet,
Yeah.
what did you guys feel about like when they rock up there and find Lando and it's like, oh, you found me. I guess now I can help you guys
Oh,
with your rebel.
No, but he said
strange.
he got a message from... Who did he get a message from?
From Leia.
From Leia, yeah. So
to
that's
go
so-
meet them.
Yeah,
I
or
missed
something.
that.
You know, the weird thing was, it's like it just kept going. They even played into, oh, what a coincidence! This festival happens once every 43 years.
Yeah.
What a coincidence! Then
Lampshade hanging
Yeah.
does not absolve your film of its sins.
I mean, all right. Are we
So
in,
Lando was actually meant to be there.
all
They
right. Are
didn't
we
just
into
run
stuff
it.
that we didn't like about the
Yeah.
film now? Okay. Them reeling in anything relevant to Star Wars, like all the old actors they were getting in, all the old kind of sets and scenes, they were bringing them in to bring in the nostalgia. I mean, the first trailer for this film was just scenes from the original trilogy, just being like, hey, you remember when Star Wars was good? Do you remember these characters? It's the end of another series, but just remember when Star Wars was good. That's what I felt like a lot happened in here. Like there were good bits,
I mean,
but there was a lot of just drawing on. They even got Wedge Antilles back in there. He's in there for a
Yeah,
5-second scene in the
yeah.
turret. I'm like, this
saw
grey
that.
old fella. I went, oh, that's Wedge. I guess he survives. It's kind of a nice thing from the original trilogy, but why bring him back in this one? Just
I
let
don't
these
know, look, I
characters
don't-
lead. Just let them lie.
for that kind of thing, I don't mind. Because it's like, that was at the big battle. This is like everyone
Oh,
in
don't get
the
me started.
galaxy.
Don't get me started about the big
well,
battle.
hang on. But
Oh.
I'm saying if you accept the premise of this is everyone's going, fuck it. This is
The
it.
end of an era.
Yeah.
Yeah, then all right, 5 seconds of audio of Wedge, like that's fine. But Lando felt really really shoehorned in.
Oh,
like, hey, remember
Oh, come
Lando?
on, man. That flame, like Han just died. You can't just do that.
But, yeah, and but I mean, there are other things which I didn't like. The Death Star, I didn't mind it. I thought it was visually interesting.
What
the
about-
X-wing being raised from the water, I thought, oh yeah.
What
that's
about the
fine.
puzzle piece when they looked and that's how they found like
That was incredibly stupid.
Oh, actually, you know what this
that
film?
doesn't even make sense.
Okay,
what
okay.
if she was standing
Like
in a
5
different-
meters to the left.
or
Alright.
in a slightly different angle? She wouldn't have. For the context, this is when she holds up the puzzle piece,
The dagger.
the dagger to the Death Star to know exactly where to look. That, yeah, I couldn't believe it.
Okay. Question, guys.
Yeah.
Like right at the start, I was getting vibes from this when they're on the jungle planet. But did this film feel like an Indiana Jones kind of quest for the Holy Grail kind of thing for you guys?
No.
Like for me, it did. Especially when they brought out the knife and the extra little, extra little bit so they could find the exact location of the secret little trinket. everyone's wearing like jungle safari stuff at the start of the film. I was getting Indiana Jones vibes
I
for
did
a
not
lot
get
of the film.
Indiana Jones.
I was getting
did
it.
get serious. This is unnecessarily complicated MacGuffin chasing vibes. Like we need to find this thing, to find the other thing, to find the other thing. It's like
They can sell the dagger and the triangle as upgrades to your character in Battlefront.
no, there'll be toys. There'll be toys. There'll be models.
Okay. Question: how do we feel about Palpatine coming back?
X.
Your Palpatine's daughter or granddaughter. Ooh, it felt like a...
That means Palpatine, and I don't want to. I
Yeah.
really don't want to get into it.
I
He
know.
boned someone who's
Hey,
like
man.
a
Do it.
deformed human being.
I
Yeah.
didn't get that. That was so random. Just like, okay, we got to figure out a last name for her. Let's go with Palpatine.
I actually thought it was cool in the last film where they said, "Nah, you're no one's daughter. There's no blonde line. You're just some rando
It
from
was
some
at
switch."
least one of the more interesting points. I mean, I look, Star Wars is fundamentally a pretty simplistic kind of setting. I can buy it. Okay, fine. Everyone's related to everyone else. Whatever. Is it a good idea? No, but fine. It's Star Wars.
I think it's one of the
Why
weakest
Palpatine?
things that they do.
But,
It's
well, why? Who else is it going to be?
Could have been anyone. But
It could have been no one. That's what I hate. It's just like you've got a whole Jedi Order of people who aren't blood related. It's like, why is it that
Yeah, no,
it
of course.
has to be Palpatine's daughter?
It
who
would have
has-
been more interesting for her as a character because there was that whole arc of her having to deal with like, you're just some person. There's nothing particularly special about you.
But that's the joy of the Force, is that it doesn't have to go through a blood. Because then it just sounds more like a genetic thing, which is like, well, you got Palpatine's blood.
I think,
Of course you're going to be super Force capable. That's how it works.
but I mean, for me, that was like, whatever. Bringing Palpatine back to begin with, I really don't know, because on the one hand, yeah, it's obviously a terrible idea, and it super undercuts the original trilogy, and it's like it was unnecessary. And it's, why bring it back? Does that?
how did it happen? We
How
don't
did it?
know.
How did it-
Sith magic
See,
cloning.
At this
something.
point, this whole trilogy, how it happened never matters. It's just we want something cool to happen. We're going to chuck it.
I
in
could sort of buy
They'll
that
never
this is
explain it.
like Legend of Darth Plagueis kind of stuff, but like, is it a good idea? No, but also Last Jedi really wrote them into a corner. Like, you kill Snoke and then what? Like,
Did you see all the Snokes in the tube?
yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, it's like, okay, but why was he doing that? Don't
Yes.
worry about it. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. He
What
made
about
Snoke.
What about
He
his
put the voices in Rey's head. Don't worry about it.
What about the
It's
Sith cult in the stadium?
Oh yeah, but
They were all just sitting there for like 30 years
10,000
waiting.
years waited for the show to begin.
Yeah.
Sith Lord.
It was.
How did Snoke have any powers or anything?
I don't know. He was a vessel for Palpatine.
Like a
I don't know.
puppet. Yeah.
It's where I hated the bit that they just added in the title crawl too. Where it's just like Palpatine's back, and he called everybody to say you're fucked.
Yeah,
It's
for,
like
me, for me, I felt like the opening was by far the shakiest part of the movie because they're just throwing all this stuff at you, which is like, by the way, Palpatine and stuff, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Where's this coming from?
yeah.
But then it was probably, I'm using extreme air quotes, the right decision, because if you dragged it out, it would have been so much worse. Like, all right, it's an unpleasant band-aid to rip off, but get it out of the way at the start, and then it's like, okay, fine, we're dealing with Palpatine's back, I guess. Let's get on with the movie, and then
Palpatine came back in the so before they made these movies
in the
a
expanded
long time ago.
universe.
They made
Yeah.
They wrote 3 books. It's called the Admiral Thrawn trilogy or the Thrawn trilogy.
Well,
And-
there was a whole huge number of books which were kind of independent, and then they got written together and interrelated and sort of weaved into this.
Yeah, it's like a episode or was official at the time, episode 7, 8, 9, and Palpatine came back in that as a clone. So it wasn't completely out of the ballpark. Palpatine.
Yeah,
coming
but
back.
If they
thing
said
is-
he was a clone, it might be a bit more like okay.
But the thing is, as well, with that, like, that was just because it was an idea before didn't mean it was a good idea.
no.
But at least then with that stuff, there were like, for me, those books, which I never read, I'm just going off Wikipedia from my reading, but it propelled the Foray story because there was the stuff with Yu Zhan Vong the invaders from another galaxy, which is why the original Death Star was built, supposedly to fight off this invasion that Palpatine had sensed was coming. And at least that's
That
a
sounds
new
good.
story, which is interesting. But this, like, for me, the reason that these movies leave me feeling so hollow is that it was just so much squandered potential, because in the end, nothing really happened. We're just back where we started at the end of episode 6, but now with a bunch of new characters that I don't really care about. It's like, it might as well have not even happened. Disney made some money, and we're just left with these 3 movies that, like, I was thinking about it, I was really wrestling with this after the movie, like, out of the new movies, where does this one fit? And I feel like it's probably the worst made movie of the 3, but I kind of, like, I don't know, I didn't like The Last Jedi, but at least it had some interesting ideas. The Force Awakens was boring but competent. This one was somewhere in between, but at the end I just thought, I'm never going to watch any of these again. What does it matter?
Yeah.
With at least The Last Jedi actually ruined old stuff, whereas this one didn't ruin old stuff. I feel like The Last Jedi was a real slap in the face to Luke Skywalker as a character and everything like that.
Well, I don't think The Last Jedi ruined anything, because those old movies still exist, and you can just pretend the new ones didn't happen.
It's pretty hard.
Nah,
It's in
it's
my
pretty
face
easy.
everywhere.
I think that's the
They've already pretended the prequels didn't happen. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no reference to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I just find it incredibly disappointing in that it's the same thing. The problem I had with Rogue One is that you've got Disney with all this talent, all this money,
I agree, Millie. Wow.
all this money, and it's just like this is what they've come out of. Like, you think about Adam's like, yeah, I'm not going to watch these films again. It's just like, what kind of legacy are you building off this? What, like the original Star Wars trilogy are just really, really good films that people just fell in love with because they were so competent and they really sell their world really well. Like, all the sound effects and special effects really help sell the Star Wars universe, which is just World War II Europe and space.
I couldn't believe that
With wizards.
With wizards.
After all the flack the story got for Colin Trevorrow's Last Jedi and his writing, they got him back to write this story. I saw in the credits.
Yeah, that was... Hollywood is bankrupt. Like, intellectually bankrupt.
Yeah.
Agreed. But what do you think about the new force powers? Like, you can now heal people. You can also now, like, suck their life force out.
Yeah, I've seen that enough times in video games. They're just taking that off.
I don't know, it's fine.
It's fine. I reckon it's fine.
What
I mean, there's
about
space wizards.
Teleportation, where you can teleport into wherever
Well,
someone else is and grab their shit.
See,
That wasn't
that
really...
was-
that
I
wasn't
actually
really
didn't mind that. I
teleportation.
actually thought that was kind of cool. Like, that was the force link that those two characters had.
Yeah, I don't think they were physically there. I felt like they were just in communication with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and- no, because that's the thing is Ben couldn't, because
They
Kylo,
could interact, but they weren't in the same place.
yeah, they
because
could
he
only
didn't
see
know.
each other. They
Yeah.
brought that back from the last one. They could only see each other. They couldn't see the world around them, but it kind of locked in a bit more, and that he could actually take things off her. And that's where,
Which I
like, you
was
got the
fine with.
lightsaber.
I thought that
Yeah,
was
I thought that was
interesting.
cool. That was like, oh, that's an actual okay twist. It's like, oh, I just wish Kylo's fight that happened with the whole the Knights of Ren. I thought that whole fight scene on the Knights of Ren in general could have had, like, if they were the SS officers that have been chasing these guys the entire film, and then they suddenly, like, crop up right at the end. It's like, are these guys supposed to be badass? Like, they just feel like a cosplay group.
You
who are just
reminded
like,
me about the Knights of Ren, Andy.
Why?
Why?
Why were they in the film?
Who are they?
Yeah.
Like, I get that they're supposed to be... These were the other students at Luke's school that Kylo Ren turned or whatever, but, like, it's never really explained.
Oh, is that who they are?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even
It's
Yeah.
never really explained. They're just kind of there. And are they not important? Have they been hanging around this whole time?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, why they didn't need to be in this movie. They didn't need to be. They didn't need to exist at all.
If they made them more unique and we actually knew, then I would understand, okay, they want to, sell individual action figures for all the Knights of Ren and have them very unique. But they
Yeah.
didn't really do that.
I would have been happy if they just gave them some of those red guards or something. Like, give them, like, the
Yeah.
equivalent of Palpatine's guards that you see with... Like, they do all the uniforms for all the new Empire of Star Destroyers and everything. And they'll light all this red on. I'm like, that looks cool. Make that, like, just give Kylo a bodyguard. It's like, these are now your crack stormtroopers or something that you're going to run around with, that every bad guy seems to have.
So you wanted to talk about the final battle you had some problems with.
Oh, well, okay. The whole aspect of suddenly there is, like, okay, the running joke was for the last film they'd have to blow up a planet-destroying weapon or something that can destroy the universe. But no, it's an entire fleet of ships, Star Destroyers, that have giant laser cannons underneath that can then blow up a planet.
Yeah.
And there's millions of them, and so they're going to destroy every single planet. That's how it's going to work. And you're like, this is lame. It's so lame. It felt like when you're watching like Avatar, and it's just like, oh, don't worry, the animals are here to save us now. You know, with the original trilogy, you had the rebels versus the Empire. They grounded the Empire as being the old Republic gone corrupt, ruled by an emperor. The rebels were this tiny little force running around. And you know, the final battle of Endor was all right, we're going for broke, but we've got a plan, and here's the rebels. There's one side versus the other, and we've got a battle that goes for a while.
Well, you have to have a sky beam at the end of every single one of these movies.
Oh.
If you haven't noticed, like every Marvel movie, every animated movie,
Yeah,
the
it's
beam will
got-
come from the sky or go up to the
Yeah,
sky.
and it's just like,
That's about the
I don't
ticking
know.
the boxes.
I mean, for me, like, the Deus Ex Machina is no, it's not great. Obviously, it's pretty lazy. But if you've already decided, okay, there's going to be this fleet of like 10,000 planet-destroying what are they called? The
Star Destroyers.
Star Destroyers. Then it's like, okay, how do they beat that? Well, we've already seen that the resistance is down to about 36 people.
yeah.
They can't win against that, so you need to find some way to do it. So, I mean, the whole idea of, okay, they're going to find a way to unite all the other people and convince them that they have a chance if they work together. Like I said at the start, it's an idea which in principle is okay. The execution was bad.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But I didn't go in. You have to go into this movie not expecting it to be a good movie.
Yeah, you know what? But the problem was, Adam, there were little bits that got me excited. There was little bits where like, oh, maybe they could pull it out. Maybe they could do something good. No.
There were things about that last battle which I liked. The invasion on top of the Star Destroyer, I was like, well, this is new and interesting, I guess. The riding the horses
the
was a bit
opposite.
weird. I'm not sure. I was a bit not really sold on that part, but you know, running on top of a Star Destroyer and then like throwing grenades in to try and blast a hole open, like that's an
And
interesting
you know, it
idea.
had some tension. It had some like action, some pacing. Like actually got the blood going. Yeah, that was fine.
Thinking about the Deus Ex Machina, about like just a storytelling perspective, like something that really frustrated me is they didn't set up certain points. Like for example, the scene where they fell through the sand and there was the big worm, and the worm happened to have a wound that Ray could heal.
Oh yeah.
Why didn't they good storytelling would say that Sith ship that they found, okay, the Sith ship they found in there is actually lodged on the worm, and then she has to then use her force to get that lodged off the worm. Not just, here's a Sith ship, get something off it. Here's a worm, oh, it's got a wound. You got to actually set up the beats. This happened, therefore this happens, therefore this happens. Not this happens, then this happens, then this happens.
Yeah, for me, like, I mean, I feel like this movie, because so much is just thrown at you, you really have to be, you kind of have to join the dots for yourself a little bit, which is bad storytelling.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, where did Palpatine come from? Well, I guess
It'd be cool. It'd be cool to have Palpatine in the movie, or just have some big bad that we got left.
My feeling with that scene was that maybe like the wound was left by that guy who crashed there, because he figured out the snake was blocking the only way out, and so he was trying to escape, and the thing killed him. And then Ray was like, "No, we'll heal it," and then it lets them through. And it's like, "Oh, there was an exit."
Yeah.
there.
Problem is that guy's been a skeleton. He's a skeleton.
He's
a
a
skeleton now. I mean, like that's the thing. Telegraphing that stuff and actually building it up, that could have been done better. It could have been done better in a lot of ways.
But basically, I mean, we all know that scene was only included so that Ray could use her force healing as a setup for later, which is like, again, it's telling stories backwards. We want this to happen. How do we justify it? We put a scene in earlier where it does this, and it's not very naturalistic.
Colin Trevorrow's storytelling, basically.
You know what I really didn't like? The fake out deaths. I didn't like that.
Well,
Chewbacca.
not just the fake out deaths, but so many things in the movie which are just immediately undercut. And I thought that was one of the big weaknesses of the movie.
Yeah.
Like a really big problem.
Yeah, there wasn't enough.
Chewie was like, when Chewie died, I was like, holy shit, that's actually like surprising and affecting. I was like, wow, we're 20 minutes into the movie, and Rey has accidentally killed Chewie with Force lightning that she didn't mean to do just because she was trying to channel the Force. That's a really interesting thing.
and
That
it's
she
good
has
for
to
it.
grapple with that.
Yeah.
But no, don't worry. Actually, he was on a different transport.
He's on a different transport.
There was another one around the corner.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, all right.
Yeah.
But then it's like, that happens again and again.
The worst one I thought was C-3PO because they foreshadowed
Oh.
it with they foreshadowed it. They foreshadowed it with R2D2 go bloop bloop bloop, and he's just like, you know what? You are my best friend. You know, like, oh, that's a really cute moment. He's gonna die, isn't he? Like, you just know something's gonna happen. And then they go to the planet. It's just like, oh, you're just gonna have to rebuild my memory. You know, they built up the comedy with C-3PO. It was really nice. But it's just like, the only way you can get me to translate this is if you wipe my memory, and then somehow it'll play this. And then he just sits there, and it's just like, C-3PO, why don't you say anything? I'm just looking. It's my last time I'll see my friends. I'm like, fuck off. You
Also,
don't know these people.
Yeah, I don't care about you.
You just said R2 that he was your only friend, and then suddenly you're just going, I fucking love everybody.
And they
because I'm
brought
about
his
to die."
memory back anyway.
And then,
Like,
and
yeah.
then
2 scenes later.
R2 just brought his memory back, and you're like,
That whole thing for me, tonally, was all over the place. Because it's like, okay, this is C-3PO's heroic moment. But then also they're like throwing in jokes like, oh, my first laser battle. And it's like...
so you're like, look, I could kind of understand that if they kept the memory gone. Like, because C-3PO's always been the comic relief. He's always been, like, exclaiming stuff in the middle, like, when it's obvious. But, like, if they kept it, like, the consequence of that would have been good to keep on. And then R2-D2 is literally helping his mate who's, you know, sacrificed himself and been injured in this conflict. It's just like, no, he's back to, he just lost a month or a couple of days worth of memory. It's like,
if R2D2 can restore C-3PO's memory, why didn't he do that after Revenge of the Sith? Because that was the whole thing, that they wiped C-3PO's memory at the end of Revenge of the Sith, so he doesn't know anything.
But didn't they wipe R2-D2 as well?
No, they didn't.
they wiped,
They didn't wipe R2D2 as well.
When did that happen?
At the end of Revenge of the Sith,
Does it
on
actually
the Tantive 4,
Yeah,
they said wipe,
they say it.
destroyed. And then I know because in one of the visual dictionaries it says only R2D2 will ever have all the memories they shared and everything like that.
Yeah.
So it was canon that he's.
Well, I mean, they said in this movie specifically that someone said, doesn't R2 have your memory backed up? And he was like, C-3PO said, yeah, but his memory banks are notoriously unreliable or something.
Oh,
Yeah.
so that's
See,
Just a throwaway.
But see, I would have liked if that was a lie that R2-D2 had told him or something, or just fucked it around a couple of
This
times.
doesn't
He
need
went,
to
"No."
be in there. But no, it's the same thing. I mean, Ben gets thrown down a shaft,
Oh,
which
yeah.
he climbs back out of,
Yeah.
and
Get-
dies, but then he gives the life force back into her, and then he died earlier, and she brought back. And it's,
Yeah.
It happens so many times. I'm like, no, there are no consequences for anything
Yeah.
in this movie.
Yeah.
And it's like the movie saying, you don't have to care about what's happening. And I'm just like, fine, you don't want me to care, I'm not going to care.
Mm. Yeah.
And that robs the movie of its emotional core.
It could have
Which again is why it leaves no impact.
Yeah, it could have had some real emotional punches there, but it just didn't. It just did.
It's a movie that's too afraid to do anything.
Yeah. And the fact that we're bringing back a lot, like, especially with the Force allowing people to have characters come back as spirits or something, and then be able to just use Force powers anyway, it's just like, oh, Luke Skywalker could just literally do whatever he wants now. Like, he can come back as a ghost and lift up the old X-Wing, and he could just do whatever. So it's like,
Well, no, I mean, in The Last Jedi, Yoda came back and sent a bolt of lightning.
Oh, yeah,
It's a
no,
big
but I
thing.
understand that. But it's just like, all right, what's the consequences of death for him then? Leia's back as
Yeah,
a
no,
ghost
you're
as
right.
well.
It's
They're going to
like-
run around. It's just regular people.
They're
When
not-
regular people die, then that's it. But they're just regular people. Who cares
Yeah.
about them?
Yeah.
And then they established that Rey could do the Force lightning, but then they never revisited that again. Like, why wasn't the final battle like Palpatine doing Force lightning against Rey's Force lightning? That she just brought out the lightsabers, so it
I
never
don't know.
lent on.
Now,
to-
okay, now question.
Yeah.
Because the whole idea of Palpatine was for Rey to kill him so that he would then inhabit her body as a Sith because she could hear the voices of the Sith and that would just taunt her forever or something.
Yeah.
And she was willing to do it so that her friends would survive. Kind of
Yeah,
like
it's
Luke
just
and
the
all that stuff.
exact same thing as Return of the Jedi.
Exactly. Now, is the reason why they didn't have it because for some reason she switched and suddenly she could hear all the Jedi Knights' voices and therefore she was a Jedi Knight, and therefore she could kill Palpatine? Or did Palpatine kill himself with his lightning, and therefore that's why the Sith died out? Like,
I don't know.
And that's the sad thing, is that
It doesn't matter.
there are games and other movies that delve into the Jedi Sith kind of relationship or dichotomy a lot better than this film or this trilogy ever has. Like, it's just been, they're evil, we're good, that's it. There's no like expansion of why would you might want to be a Sith instead of a Jedi. Like, are there any downsides to being a Jedi Knight? You know, is like let's actually have a look at the philosophy behind it all. Are they the only options? That's kind of what I liked about The Last Jedi. It was just like they were bringing in like, why do you have to choose between light and dark? Why can't you be in the middle or do something else? You know, it sounded like kind of interesting. Break the cycle, break the dichotomy, you know?
Well, that's what I was sort of hoping would happen in The Last Jedi, because The Last Jedi was tried so hard to subvert everything, but it did it in ways that either confusing or didn't make sense or unnecessary.
Yeah.
And in the end, didn't matter, because like the old ways must end, and then it's just still good guys and bad again. Probably just Disney being like, all right, red lines. There has to be Jedi. There has to be Sith. These are the things that we've trademarked. But on the topic of like the mythology, they threw in this thing about like being a dyad in the Force. There was this connection between Ben and Rey, and then Palpatine was like, a dyad. It happens once every millennia or something. It's like, why can't they just have a Force connection? Why do you have to throw in names and come up with bullshit? It's so unnecessary. It's just exhausting.
Yeah, yeah.
On the topic of Palpatine, I feel like in a way Palpatine was underused and overused, because like all he did, I felt, was say lines that were like lines that he'd said before.
Sinister
Strike
voice.
me down.
Yeah.
You know?
Do it.
Do it.
He's really desperate to die. He's just like, just kill me, please.
But it's like you're not even letting Ian McDiarmid like ham it up with some new stuff. He's just like a corpse that repeats lines that are like things we've heard before.
A parody of himself.
I don't want a meme like being the driving villain of this movie. It's kind of that's again like the bad of like fan service.
Yeah.
It didn't land. Another thing which I didn't like was there were a lot of contrivances. There was a lot of, how do you know this? It's a feeling.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, the first time, it was like, all right, I can buy it. Like, you got to do something. Gut feeling. But then it's like happens again and again. Like,
when it's convenient, yeah.
And yeah, then it turns into a plot convenience.
So
it's is this like a Force sensitivity thing, or is it just a gut feeling that happens to be right? Doesn't matter.
Well,
it's
like,
just unjustified. People know things and do things, and it just...
For example, when Rey looks up at the ship, she goes like, Chewie's on that ship. I sense him, he's alive. But Kylo's on that ship and can't sense that Rey's down below. In that same...
Yeah, he's like, she's nearby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like at the end with Finn being like, oh, they're shutting down the beacon or whatever. They must be transferring the signal. Like, it's coming from that command ship.
Yeah,
How do you know?
yeah.
It's a feeling.
It's a feeling.
Whoa. Slow the fuck down. This is not like a gut feeling kind of thing. You could just say, well, where else would they send the beacon from other than the command ship? Like,
he could say,
I
I used to be First Order, so I know. But Finn's not meant to be Force sensitive either.
You know who would have been the perfect guy for that line? The Ginger General. If he was still alive, it could have been like, they're sending it from the command ship, and then he gets killed or something rather than...
spy!
Yeah, I know.
can't kill the spy. That whole thing again was like, was that a good idea? Was that a bad idea? I don't even know, because it happened and then was resolved immediately.
When did he become the spy?
It's just this film. It's just this film.
Don't know.
Because if
It's only this film.
If he was the spy in the previous films, and all those emotional tantrums he had in the last year, like, kill that He's like the best actor in the Star Wars universe.
You know what? It would have been great if it just been like, "Hi, I'm Secret Agent Jim. I've been undercover with the First Order since the beginning." Like, you guys almost broke up my covert
I
operation.
feel like it was this movie. I think it was just once Kylo Ren came to power, he was like, I don't like this.
Yeah,
I don't
I
like
know.
Kylo Ren.
You know what they could have had? They could have had the spy be that spy from the last movie that set them up. Remember?
Oh, the code breaking.
Oh, yeah, the
Why didn't they
code-breaking.
have him as a
I
star?
thought he died.
No, he didn't.
Oh,
He just
wait,
went
no,
away.
sorry. I thought everyone died on the big ship when it got hit, but
He
no.
just walked away into
Yeah.
the distance, never to be seen.
I mean, look, the writing in these movies has not, for me, it hasn't been. This was the movie for me which felt the most like a Star Wars movie, even more so than Force Awakens, which was literally just a remake of
A New Hope, yeah.
But that's really only because it was J.J. Abrams just stealing bits from Star Wars.
Mm.
Like, here's a throne room scene. Here's a conference room scene. And it's like, okay, sure, fine, but
A
it was not
canteen scene.
Here's a cantina
A
scene.
planning to destroy the fleet scene.
Yeah.
A scene where they suddenly come in at the very end and save the day. Like, it ticked all
The
those
film
boxes.
was only good because it was a Star Wars film, and I think because
Well,
it
I don't
came-
think it was good.
well, only
was only
bearable.
competent.
It was only bearable because it was a Star Wars film and could
Yeah.
take from so many other different parts of it, the characters, the locations, the planets, all of that. On its own, if it didn't have that kind of universe, it would struggle a lot more, and it's already struggling big
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Why do they make JJ out as this genius? Like, are these Star Trek movies he did that amazing? I haven't seen them.
No, look, I think that JJ, as a director, in the modern style of filmmaking, is fine for doing Star Wars. Probably one of the best choices. But as a writer, he's always been a lackluster writer.
Mm.
And like his stories and plots are not good. And this movie is like all the others, basically. It's all just like mysteries and chasing after things, and it's like, come up with a new idea, man.
Mm.
I thought they would shoehorn in more stuff that's to come, because like, although this is the end of the Skywalker saga, they're going to be doing more movies like the Ewan McGregor, Obi-Wan Kenobi movies. Like, I'm surprised they didn't bring him back to be a ghost.
Yeah, well,
for a
now I
bit.
think we need to get into like the metatextual stuff, because like for me, what I was saying in the car ride home was that what's baffling to me is that it's so clear that they knew they were making 3 movies, and they did not plan it out at all. Like, they just went movie by movie, and it was a disaster, I think.
Yeah.
Because this movie, when I say it tries to do 2.5 movies worth of stuff, I really mean it, because I feel like they're trying to walk back almost everything in The Last Jedi, and then they're trying to throw in all of this extra plot about Palpatine, which was supposedly doing stuff all along, which should have been in the first of the 3. And it's like they're trying to almost do the entire trilogy just in this one movie, hurriedly, just trying to wrap it up, be like, all right, we'll make sense of all of this, and don't worry about that, and this was actually this, the other thing. And it doesn't work. You can't do that.
Say what you want about George Lucas, at least he wrote 3 movies at a time. He
Yeah,
wrote
like
all 3 and then broke it up
The
both times.
prequels, I will watch again. They're worse movies, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But at least they're interesting. You can enjoy them for how bad they are, and you can at least appreciate that there are good ideas done badly.
Mm.
This trilogy, I feel, is characterized by bad ideas executed competently. And I would rather watch a movie that fails but tried to do something interesting than not. Like The Last Jedi, for
I've thought that the
example.
whole time, yeah.
The Last Jedi, for example, I didn't like, but I would be more inclined to rewatch it than Rise of Skywalker, because at least it had ideas. Even if they were bad ideas, they tried. Rian Johnson tried to do something new, tried to go in a different direction. It's not his fault that Star Wars is just too creatively bankrupt a property to do that kind of thing.
Or he's got too many strings attached that he can't just do what he wants without having to add in a ton of new locales and new spots and, you know, new things that can turn action figures into.
But again, I think this is just a problem with the way that movies are made, because it's either one of these things where a movie gets made by committee, or it just everything gets given to this one guy.
But
It's
they-
like you need something in between. The original Star Wars was not just George Lucas. It was
No.
George Lucas and there was like
two other directors,
the
writers.
The editing was and it was this really huge collaborative effort. And I don't know. I think it's a good thing to have one person with an overarching vision, but people who can say this is a good idea, this is a bad idea. Why don't we try this other stuff? And that was the issue with The Last Jedi. Rian Johnson was writer director. We didn't have a lot of experience. It was a problem with the prequels. George Lucas was surrounded by yes men who just went along with everything, all of his terrible ideas for like in terms of let's throw in comic relief where it doesn't belong. And,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely.
If anything, it gives me a greater appreciation of just how good the original trilogy is in so many ways. Like, it really is a diamond rough of it was the right people, the right place. Like, the Empire, the Return of the Jedi kind of flounders a bit, but it's still a really solid trilogy, and that's why it's legendary. That's why you've got these two other trilogies out of it. You know, it's just like people. It's really well done. It's a really well done set of movies.
The fact that they've even made a Star Wars movie 40 years onwards sort of speaks to how impactful the first trilogy was.
Oh yeah, and it's so good, and it just goes to show that look like. I think a lot of the hope was with the prequels with George Lucas is look, he's the guy who started. Everybody's pointed to him as the man behind Star Wars. Surely, like he's going to bring in it again. And sadly, he didn't. It was a very interesting dumpster fire, but it was an interesting one. This one, you've got Disney, like The Force Awakens. It kind of brought back the vibes of Star Wars, which I was kind of like, okay, but I was like, all right, next film, let's actually see what happens. And it just kind of turned-tailed, and it turned into its own dumpster fire. But I find, if I'm going to keep with that analogy, at least the prequels were like an interesting dumpster fire. Like it's an actual, like it's a dumpster fire at a fireworks place. So there's stuff going off. You're like, oh, this is interesting. But of all the stuff they had, Disney have just been like, well, we got to make films out of Star Wars. We've got to make the three trilogies. We'll make the three films of the trilogy. We'll make Rogue One. We'll make Solo. We just got to pump out Star Wars because everybody wants more Star Wars. Rather than let's actually make some really solid films and like actually really vet these. Like Solo went through a couple of reshoots and things. Okay, it's the one I haven't watched, but after watching Rogue One, it kind of killed my excitement for the whole thing because of how derivative and shit it was, in my opinion.
You say, Adam, about how this is how they make movies nowadays with Hollywood. They do the Marvel movies and everyone loves those, and I don't like them, but I'm saying that they're able to make movies where people enjoy. But these Star Wars movies, they're seeing the reception not coming back good.
No. But I mean, the Marvel movies are what I was saying when I talk about movies made by committee, right? They're safe.
People love them.
Some people love them. I think the vast majority of people like them well enough. It's just turn your brain off, go to the movies, watch a movie that's okay. Here's an extremely simple story with good visuals and decent characters.
That's competently made.
Star Wars didn't have it.
That's competently made.
Force Awakens was competently made, and people like that just as well.
And thinking about like these really big set pieces compared to the original trilogy, like it really feels like they don't know how to set up these action scenes. When you think about the Return of the Jedi, they had, okay, what's our objective? We've got to get Han Solo's trapped in carbonite. We're going to set it up. We're going to set up the stage. Everyone's in their positions. It's going to be like this whole heist thing. Then we have the big action escape scene. Like this is a stage by stage thing, not as soon as the title credits happen, it's pew, 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 and just like, we got to grab this. Like they haven't set anything up.
It's like what I said. They this movie just threw so much stuff at you.
But I wouldn't say it's not just this movie. It's like the last one and The Force Awakens. They've all been on a manic pace the whole way through.
Yeah.
Like no point is there like, you know, you're watching The Empire Strikes Back, and you got this whole scene on Cloud City where it's just like it's slowly building up to, this doesn't feel right. It feels like a trap. Yeah, Hoth.
Exactly.
You're building up the environment, and then the Empire's found us, and then it slowly builds up to the Battle of Hoth, which is the big exciting moment.
I think this is partly just an issue with J.J. Abrams.
You know, and that's
if you force him to, if you force J.J. to shoot a script which has parts where there's build up and things, then he's a good action director. But when you give him the reins, He just has this frenetic style
Like
where he
his
wants to
ADD.
have
Mm.
100 things happening all at once.
Do we think that that's what a younger audience would prefer, though?
They do. Nowadays, they're all that. I'll put it this way.
But they're wrong.
Like, there are like kids, like whether it be my family or friends of like who have kids and things like that. They really just cannot sit through these old Star Wars films. They're just like, they need that fast pace. It's really something to do with like a bigger picture regarding audiences and how they've just changed.
I think.
But is it like that audiences have changed or that audiences have been trained?
That's an age-old debate.
Yeah.
Like, is it gratification or is it they're actually...
It's a
causing
topic that's a little too
way
big for
too
this
big.
podcast.
Oh.
If people want to do communications theory,
But one thing, Andy, I'll let you say.
Well, I was just going to delve into that, but if we're not going to delve
no,
into that, then,
definitely not.
yeah,
Too much.
I'll just say it's the kids who are wrong. That's what it is.
But so Mike, so I think we've reached that point where the relevant question is, where does before we get that, I'm glad that you brought up the Marvel movies, Carl, because this is again going back to like the way that they planned out the Avengers and Endgame in particular, where they're drawing from all these different sources, Easter eggs they've hidden throughout all these movies. It's been planned for a decade. It baffles me that they didn't do the same thing with Star Wars.
maybe they did and they had to scrap it all.
Maybe they did. But if they did, scrapping it was not the right decision.
Yeah, they should have stuck with it, committed to it.
But
if anything, Star Wars, the way it's been rolled out, feels very old school compared to Marvel. Like Marvel feels like it's that they've done it in terms of we've made a media franchise just out of making a film that comes out, like a film coming out every couple of months, and people are going to be watching it.
yeah,
and
the
it's-
Marvel movies are very manufactured.
Manufactured, but they still have enough in there to make people go, oh yeah, this will be enjoyable enough. And there's a little payoff where you got to wait till after the credits for the next little,
Yeah.
little piece that joins, that plugs into the puzzle. It's like, all right, what's going to happen in the next film? Like there's always a biter for what's going to happen next. But you mean like it felt like at the end of this film, with the end of the Rise of Skywalker, it's just like they were just putting out their hands, cool, we're done. Like they just crawled across that finish line, being like, we've done the trilogy.
We've
Now
cashed
we-
the check.
Yeah,
and
we've
stuff.
done it. Now we can think of something else to make back the $4 billion or something we paid
Yeah. So
George Lucas.
what I was going to say was, we all were aware. I don't know if the listeners were aware of like a few years ago when they were talking about their plans for Star Wars. They had all of these films lined up and ready to go, which now they're kind of walking back, sort of pushing the dates back. Where does the franchise go from here?
They are still, that's a good point. Just to go on from that, so they still committed to doing one Skywalker movie, one spin-off movie, one Skywalker movie, one spin-off movie. The last one that was going to be the Bounty Hunter movie, they turned it into a TV series instead, and then they're planning on doing this Obi-Wan series. So they have dialed it back in terms of the frequency, but they're still committing to this ridiculous number of Star Wars. I think, as for your question, what's going to happen next, I think they're going to do no more movies. It's going to strictly be, they're going to say the movie thing, we've worn it out. TV series is the way to go. This Bounty Hunter series, The Mandalorian, is doing really well. Keep going with that. Maybe turn the Obi-Wan version into a series instead and have an interconnected thing with that.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's sad that they've run Star Wars into the ground so much that they're not going to be able to work theatrical release anymore. But it's true. Disney had this assumption that people are never going to get sick of Star Wars, but people are so sick of Star Wars now because they pushed it so hard. They released all these movies that were super mediocre, and people don't have an appetite for average movies. People have an appetite. I mean, people like the Marvel movies are good, solid 6.5, 7 out of 10. That's fine. But people are not going to pay modern day movie prices to see a 4.5, 5 out of 10 movie.
And they don't have the same repeating characters. Like, I haven't watched all of them and I don't plan to, but I'm assuming the Aquaman movie That's DC, sorry, but you know what I mean. So
Well, people also don't see the DC.
Yeah.
the DC, like, but you know, the Iron Man movies are very separate from the Captain American movies.
Yeah.
They can be seen on their own, whereas Star Wars isn't like that. It's a continuation, really. These spin-off movies still draw on characters that we already know, with the exception, even Rogue One draws on characters, and so you get that fatigue. It's
Yeah.
not like every movie's like set in this totally new part of Star Wars.
But I mean, for me personally, I can say that I'm basically done with Star
I'm
Wars.
done too. I agree. I was
maybe-
fatigued going into this movie.
Yeah, me
I've had
too.
enough.
I wouldn't mind seeing The Mandalorian, for example. I haven't seen it, but I've heard good things. But basically, all I've heard is that it's like, I mean, Andy, you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
All I've heard is that it's basically like an episodic space western set in Star Wars.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
And like, I think that's an interesting enough new idea that it becomes tolerable.
The only
But
film,
like, I don't want to see the same shit
Well,
over again.
Well, I think the biggest thing there with the Mandalorian that's going for it is at the smaller scale. It's a lot smaller
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
terms of there's no big space battles or anything. It's just one guy, the Mandalorian, going on little space adventures, and he's like a roving samurai or something. You know, he's just this warrior who pops up into a situation and he has to deal with it. You know, he's kind of he's the catalyst to which change can happen or something
if
like that.
they do another film, the only thing they would do is go about it the way DC have with the Joker movie, and they've essentially got a story that has nothing to do with like a basic outline of a narrative that could be in anything else, and then you just slowly put Star Wars into it.
I don't
So-
know.
Yeah,
I think
I
that
don't
would
know.
be. I think that would be the death of the franchise. to
But
be
that,
honest.
well, they've done great with Joker regarding that. Like that has, like, other than them mentioning,
I
Bruce
feel like
Wayne
it'd be
and stuff.
harder to do that with Star Wars because it's so cemented in. Like,
Yeah.
if you've got the original trilogy to the prequels, and it's always been just.
You can't have a lightsaber just pop up; it'll take people out. too
Yeah,
much.
or if anything, that's what really draws people away from it, being like, oh, there's a fucking lightsaber there. Like,
Yeah.
it's only all that stuff comes into it, and you're like, yeah.
So you're saying if they got like Tarantino or Scorsese to do a Star Wars movie?
No, but like, it boils down to what do you think Star Wars is? And like, most of the time, it's just a big blockbuster space fantasy kind of thing. That's what it is. It's a space opera. It's not science
they change
fi-fi.
things all the time.
No,
Yeah, but I
think
feel like
this
Star Wars is very distinctly that. Like, DC can get away with, all right, you've got like Joker, which is like Taxi Driver, it's a psychological thriller. Then you could have something like Harley Quinn, which is more of a girls going out bashing things up, like it's an action film. Like you can stick different genres in there. Star Wars, I feel, is a lot more regimented in what it can be. So you can't just be like, get Martin Scorsese in to do a Star Wars film. I just don't feel like that would fit as well into what most people consider what Star Wars is, and that's probably what Disney have to do now. If they want to continue it, is build out what Star Wars is apart from. I mean, it's stuck in the title as well. It's always going to be about a Star War or something like that. I mean, that's kind of why
I
they.
think maybe they could change it, but it wouldn't be a Star Wars film. It would
Yeah,
just be
yeah.
It would be a film in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And I think they have, what was it, $4 billion they gave to George Lucas. This is a long-term project where they're going to really evolve what they have. Because they have a great little trilogy that George made, and this universe, and he's going to keep on building it into different TV shows, and they will make more films
And
sell
games
more
as well.
Games,
Like
toys.
the,
It's a huge
Disney Plus.
Disney
Yeah,
Plus. It's a
something
huge
there.
investment.
yeah.
So maybe down the track we would see
Yeah.
something like that.
I mean, look, there are definitely options that they can go down. It's definitely not the last we've seen of Star Wars, but it's the last I've seen of Star Wars.
Agreed.
I don't know. I think there's a good enough film. You guys will change your mind. I think so. Yes, then generally,
even watch
because I keep
Mandalorian.
thinking about this. I didn't see The Last Jedi or The Last Jedi for ages because I heard the reviews. I didn't like the sound of it, and I didn't want to just go in feeling disappointed like I did with The Rise of Skywalker. Like, I was already pretty low down there before it even started, and you guys saw me afterwards. I was pretty low after that film. And it's like, if the film's good enough and people are like, no, it's a genuinely good film, it's like, all right, cool, I'd watch that. That's the draw of the
It's not
original
gonna
trilogy.
happen.
It's not just Star Wars. It was good.
They had
I am-
5 chances.
You know
of
what?
that.
I'm an idealist. I hope someone competent is given this, and then they can do something with it. That's fun and interesting, and it's just like that's a good
I'm
film.
with Carl. They had their chance. They went for the shot. They missed.
multiple
I'm out.
times.
I'm
Mm.
out.
Mm.
It's like, for me, like when I got out of the movie, my overwhelming feeling was, yep, that was a Star Wars movie. I think that's enough Star Wars now.
Yeah.
I think we're done here.
No, I reckon you guys are wrong. I reckon if something in the future comes up, like I'm not saying it's going to be next year or the next 5 years, but you know, like sometime in the future there will be a film where we'll be like, hey, this film is actually really solid. Like it's actually a good Star Wars film.
I'm not
Like,
going
I
to
reckon
pay
you
for a
might-
ticket though.
Oh yeah. I don't think
Will be.
that's the issue. A lot of people are just like, I don't want to pay money for Star Wars. I don't want to go to pay a movie ticket price to go see Star Wars. I'd rather see something else.
It's like I don't care if I've eaten. You've ever eaten a meal so much and you just like, I don't want to eat this
Just get sick
anymore. I
of
don't
it,
care
yeah.
how good
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. Final thoughts, guys, before we wrap it up.
I think the episode 1, 2, and 3 aren't that bad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I actually
what-
feel
what we
like
gotta
But
Looking
if
back.
beforehand, Andy, you said to me that regardless of how good or bad the movie was, you were going to go with the prequels being bad.
I still hold by that. The prequels are still better than the Disney.
I agree.
I just,
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, again, I already sort of said it before. I disagree. I mean, the prequels are still bad movies. This doesn't change that.
Oh yeah, this doesn't
I'm
change
more,
it either.
like, I'm more likely to I'm more likely to rewatch them barely,
Are you
but
telling
they're
me?
still bad. They're still worse,
Oh,
less.
Adam, we're
competent
not
movies.
denying that. I just feel like it's a better trilogy than this whole rise of the whatever. What was this trilogy called?
Who knows? Mr. Thinker, you're so crazy.
So, you did not smile once at Jar Jar.
No.
You're sick.
even when he step in the poopy. So funny. Oh, so
Those films, I mean, it did have, Obi-Wan,
Qui-Gon.
Darth Maul, that Duel of the Fates. Like, it had a
That's
bunch
hectic.
of really good scenes and the overarching
I-
story.
I just wonder
No.
in how long has it been since the prequels came out? Like 10 years.
1999 was episode 1.
20 years.
What about episode 3? When was the last one? Was the
2005 was episode 3.
Okay, I wonder how we're going to feel like in 10 years about this whole trilogy, where it's just going to be memed out of existence and just be like, oh, well, it's just, you can just make fun of it now. Like, you can watch the films and just make fun of how bad they are.
We'll see.
I'm
We'll
looking
see.
forward to the Baby Yoda spin-off movie.
Oh, yeah, man.
It's
Everybody's.
called Adult Yoda.
Well, if that's it, I guess we'll join you guys next time on a normal FMG podcast episode, not a Star Wars special.
Yeah.
This is done. Star Wars is done. And let us
It's
know.
over, people.
It's
We're
over,
free.
it's
Yeah.
over.
We're finally free.
We're free. Talk about other things.
Yeah, and let us know in the comments what you thought of it. And yeah, that's sign off.
That's
Bye.
it.
Happy-
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.